What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with my hands-on and first impressions video of the Motorola Moto G Stylus 5G. So let's get started. Now, this phone recently launched in June of 2021, and it is the third device that we've gotten in the Moto G Stylus series. Now, in 2020, we got the first Moto G Stylus device. Then, in January of 2021, they redesigned the phone, but kept the same name. So that phone is just known as the Moto G Stylus 2021. And then now we have this phone, the Moto G Stylus 5G. Now stay tuned for a future video, as I will be comparing the Moto G Stylus 5G versus the Moto G Stylus 2021, as I'm sure you're very curious how this phone compares to that phone. But essentially, this phone is being offered factory unlocked for $399 as the MSRP. Now, I'm sure as time goes on, the price will be adjusted and there will be various promos and other things offered, so definitely take a look at the link in the video description to see the most up-to-date pricing for the actual phone itself. But I think the biggest thing with the Moto G Stylus 5G is that it most likely will be launched at a variety of different carriers. And the majority of people who buy this phone will be getting it from those carriers because they tend to offer a variety of different discounts, allowing you to get this phone for a fraction of the price of the MSRP. So just something to keep in mind there. Now, before I show you more of the actual phone itself, let's take a quick look and see what all we get included here in the box. Now you can see we have Moto G Stylus 5G right there. We have another 5G logo in the corner. But let's open this up. So the first thing we have here is some literature. We also have a SIM card removal tool, which is good to have. We also have a USB-C cable for charging and data transfer. And finally, we have a USB wall adapter, and this is a 10-watt USB adapter. Now with this device, we're getting a 6.8-inch display, so certainly a large display on here. The display itself is IPS LCD at 1080p. We're getting a PPI of 386, an aspect ratio of 20:9, so a more narrow but taller form factor, pretty consistent with most of the phones that have launched this year from Motorola and other companies as well. And we're getting an 85% screen to body ratio, so small bezels all around. Now up in the top left corner here, we do have a hole punch for the front facing camera, and that camera is 16 megapixels. Now stay tuned for my full review video about this phone, as I'll be showing you a variety of different photo and video samples from it. Now internally with this device, we're getting 256 gigabytes of storage, and we're also getting microSD card expansion. Now when this phone does eventually make its way over to carriers, I'm not sure if they're still going to give us that much internal storage. It's possible that they might create another version of this phone that has less storage, but I don't know that for sure. Now with the Moto G Stylus 5G, there is no wireless charging, unfortunately, but we do have a fingerprint sensor on the rear of the phone, and the phone supports face unlock, which is pretty awesome. But we'll give that fingerprint sensor a try right now. That was nice and quick. One more time. So definitely a fast, responsive, and consistent fingerprint sensor, which I'm definitely a big fan of. Now on the back side of the phone, we do have a quad camera setup. So we're getting a 48 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, a 5 megapixel macro camera for close-up images, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera for portrait mode. Now this phone does support portrait mode for both the rear and front cameras, which is also really good to see as well. Now here's how things look on the camera app. This is with the main camera right now. Then from here we can switch over to the ultra wide angle camera, so we're able to fit a lot more content into the frame here. We can also go over to the macro camera to get very close up and get things in very good detail. You can also go down to this little menu in the corner, and you can access portrait mode and a variety of other features as well. Another cool thing too is that this phone does support dual capture for video. So technically you can record a video with both the front and rear cameras at the same time. But when you go over to portrait mode, you are able to get those nice blurred out backgrounds that I know that everybody's a big fan of. You can also make adjustments to the blur as well. So there are a lot of different customization options here with the phone. So with the front facing camera, you are able to take portrait mode photos too. Or if you want to, you can take standard selfies as well. So I really like that we're getting such a fully fledged camera setup here, and I'm definitely looking forward to testing these out. Now with this device, we're getting 6 gigabytes of RAM, and we're getting the Qualcomm Snapdragon 480 5G processor. Now this is my first time using a phone that does feature the Snapdragon 480, and I believe that actually is a pretty new chipset from Qualcomm. But to my understanding, the performance that you should expect with it is pretty consistent actually with the Moto G Stylus 2021, despite that phone having a completely different processor. Now I will be going into further detail regarding that in the comparison video, so stay tuned for that. But I did run a Geekbench 5 benchmark test here with the Moto G Stylus 5G, and I'll show you the scores from that test right now. But you can see here I got a single core score of 494 and a multi-core score of 1336. So what I recommend doing is running the Geekbench 5 benchmark test on your current phone and then compare your scores to these scores to see whether or not this phone would actually be a performance upgrade for you. Now, as far as video recording goes, I think there is a little bit of confusion regarding this because from what I've seen, the Moto G Stylus 5G does not support 4K video recording with the rear camera or front camera. However, when I was doing some initial research prior to making this video, I noticed that some of the larger tech media outlets put in their articles that this phone does support 4K video recording. But I believe they made a mistake because this does not have that. Now, the front-facing video quality definitely does max out at 1080p on both this phone and also the regular Moto G Stylus 2021. But I've got that phone right here, and when you go over to the camera app and you go over to the video recording settings, you can see we have an option right here for 4K UHD. However, if you go over to the Moto G Stylus 5G and you go over to video and you do the same thing, and let me actually flip around to the rear camera, and when you go here, you can see that there is no option to adjust the video recording resolution. So based on not having that option and only being able to record at 1080p, I'm pretty convinced that this phone does not support 4K video recording with the rear camera. Now that might have to do with the specific processor, I'm not sure why, or it just might be a feature that Motorola just didn't really incorporate into the phone for some reason. And if that's the case, and it's not actually a limitation of the processor itself, then I definitely would like to see them add 4K video recording in a future update. So not really a big deal, at least to me. However, it is something you might want to be aware of, and it is a little bit surprising that some of these various publications didn't put out correct information regarding that. Now, obviously, mistakes are made by everybody from time to time, so it's not a huge deal, but in case you happen to be confused about that, I did want to make it clear here, because I don't want anyone to buy this phone expecting that you get 4K video recording, only to find out that you don't get it here. But moving on, this phone does have a 5,000 milliamp hour internal battery, so a very large battery here. However, one downside is that the charging does max out at 10 watts. So the charger that's included in the box, as I showed you earlier, is 10 watts. But in addition to that, the phone actually can't support being charged at a rate any faster than that. So that's another thing that's not necessarily a deal breaker, but if you are wanting to get a phone that recharges very quickly, then you might want to consider getting something else. Now, the good news though is that since the phone's battery is as large as it actually is, you most likely won't have to recharge it too often. I can't imagine that you would go through the entire battery in a single day. But I suppose if you're using this phone for business or you're just using it a lot for some particular reason, then technically you could get through the entire battery. However, Motorola does advertise this phone as having 2 days of battery life. Now, the software that we're getting here with the phone is Android 11, and it is a pretty much stock version of Android. Now, typically the way that Motorola does it on all their various phones is that you get a stock experience here, but they do also tie in a variety of their own special features that do make the phone more useful. So I like that, they're not trying to reinvent Android, but just take what already is good about it and just add in extra bonus features. So I'm certainly a big fan of that. Now, two other things I do want to mention about this phone is that the phone does feature a water repellent design based on what Motorola is advertising. Now, based on that, I would say definitely don't put the phone underwater or even in water on purpose, but if you happen to be outside and it's raining and some rain gets on the phone, then I wouldn't worry too much about that. And then the last thing I wanted to mention as well is that with the Moto G Stylus 5G, there is no NFC. So if you do like to use NFC to make mobile contactless payments, unfortunately, you're not getting that here with this phone. Now, that feature isn't necessarily used by too many people, but I know that the people that do use it definitely do want to have it on their phone. But I'm curious to know if that's important to you. Now, taking a closer look at the hardware of the phone, I already talked quite a bit about the front panel here, but essentially, we're getting a nice looking large display, It would have been nice if it was AMOLED, especially for the price. However, LCD does get the job done. Now, taking a look at the left side of the phone, we have the slot for the micro SD card and SIM card. By the way, the entire phone is completely made out of plastic, besides having glass on the display. But taking a look at the left side of the phone, we have the power button, volume down, volume up. Then up top here, we have the noise canceling microphone. And then on the bottom of the phone, we have the 3.5mm headphone jack, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, microphone, speaker, and of course, the stylus. Now we are getting a little bit of a different stylus configuration. It looks like the stylus on the Moto G Stylus 5G, at least at the end here, is a little bit on the smaller side compared to the Moto G Stylus 2021. But let's take a look at that right now. So it is a click out, click in design here with the stylus. I'm definitely a big fan of that. But essentially, when you pull the stylus out of the phone, you do get an intro here, kind of showing you the various features that the stylus does offer. But essentially, you can use the stylus to just navigate around the phone, which certainly can be helpful. Then in addition to that, you get this little toolbar in the side, and when you tap on that, you get a bunch of other options here. So, for example, you can create a new note. So you can draw, you can also write. So definitely kind of cool and useful if you are someone that does like to take a lot of notes. But we'll go into this more in the review video, but essentially having the stylus on the actual phone itself is very awesome. I'm glad it's here, and it's pretty amazing that this might be one of the few phones left that even offers a stylus, especially since it looks like Samsung might not even be doing a Samsung Galaxy Note device this calendar year. I suppose it's not the only phone that has a stylus though, because the Moto G Stylus 2021 also has one, but you get the point. And then taking a closer look at the back of the phone, it certainly does pick up a lot of fingerprints, that's for sure, especially since it is a reflective back. But essentially we have that quad camera setup, we have the flash, and the fingerprint sensor, and that's pretty much it. But this concludes my hands-on and first impressions video of the Motorola Moto G Stylus 5G. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, give it a thumbs up, sub to the channel, and let me know what other videos you'd like me to make regarding this phone. But I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video.